Today's edition of the Art Business Morning Show, we are talking about advanced pricing strategies for artists and photographers that are already selling. Okay. Specifically, pricing is one of the most giant conundrums that exist in this world. Okay. I'm going to give you a framework and a guide to be able to break it down and demystify it that you can put in your business immediately, and it's going to solve all of your pricing problems. All right, welcome back to another edition of the Art Business Morning Show, the show that's going to put you on the path to a six-figure-a-year art business. And I'm extremely fired up about today's episode because pricing at a macro is one of the questions that comes up more than just about anything out there that exists. I mean, I am hearing about this, seeing this, dealing with these questions, coaching artists and photographers on how best to solve this on a regular basis. And today, we're gonna focus in on sort of the higher end of the scale, and I'll get into the details on that in just a second. And let's say you're an artist or a photographer that has started selling your work and you've seen some success. Okay, you've seen some success, and let's loosely define that is, everyone that's sold several pieces to strangers, all the way up to artists that are at the six-figure-a-year plus level, and everyone in between. Okay. You essentially know at this juncture that you have the product the market wants, that strangers are buying, and you really just need to get your art, your photography in front of more potential customers and sell it. Okay. Now, despite the success of that you've been seeing, this question of pricing and how to price your work and all that entails is still an ever-present issue for you. It is a thorn in your side. And both from the business side of the equation, things like how to set your prices or markups or negotiation or sales, and whether to run them, but also on the psychological side, which is also really, really endemic in this particular community. Fears of raising prices and what that might do, charging what you're worth, plus your time, plus your materials. How often is too often to run sales, and what's it going to be like? I'm too salesy. I don't want to appear too salesy. Both the business side of this pricing conundrum, as well as the psychological side, okay, are totally normal. They're totally normal. We can all just take a deep breath and understand that we're in a great place. All artists and photographers struggle with them, continue to struggle with them. Sometimes they go away and they come back again. Okay. This guide, what I prepared for you today, is going to give you the framework that you need to bust through any and all of these situations and keep the business growing and on the right track. And simply by understanding some simple truths about how you need to go about running this business, you can just obliterate all of these pricing issues that you have. It is an amazing way to think through this entire pricing equation and how to do it and how to contemplate it. And, ultimately, yes, you guys are all creatives. Okay. I get that. But guess what? You're also all entrepreneurs. Okay. You are all building a business. You do not want this to be a hobby. You want this to potentially be your side hustle or support you massively or see incredible levels of success, whatever your ambition may be. And when you take your creative hat off for a minute and you put your entrepreneur hat on and you realize you are building a business, there are some simple truths that you just absolutely must know. Okay. And these simple truths, my argument, will form the foundation of this guide that will help you cure any and all issues that come up vis-a-vis pricing. Okay. And so we're going to start at the very top, and we're going to start with the simple one you already know. And this simple truth that everybody here already knows is no different than the simple truth of diet and exercise. We know we need a healthy diet. We know we need to exercise. We get into these periods of our lives where we start taking it seriously. We're exercising 3 days a week, and we're cutting out animal protein and intermittent fasting and doing all these diet things. And we're doing great. We're feeling fantastic. But then some time passes, and all of a sudden life happens. And all of a sudden we've gotten off track, and we veered out of the lane. We veered out of the straight and narrow, right? And that all happens to us as well. And that's okay too. You just got to get back on track. Okay, you got to get back on track. Now, the truth that I'm skating around here, Okay. To highlight it, I thoroughly enjoy quoting one of the masters. Now, everybody has learned about this guy in art school, but sadly, none of his business advice ever made it into its own course. Okay. It could have been a course on pricing, and boy, it should have been. And it should have been. And I'm talking about none other than Pablo Picasso. Okay. Quoting specifically from his book. It's called Conversations with Picasso. It's on Amazon by a guy named Brasai. I think it's Hungarian or something. Um, he was a photographer who photographed Picasso's work and had frequent conversations with him and put it into a book in like the 1940s when he was doing all this. And they were having a conversation about pricing, and Picasso dropped these two quotes. Okay, in the beginning, I did not sell at a high price, but I sold. My drawings, my canvases went, and that's what counts. He followed it up with another quote. Don't price them too high. What matters is that you sell a large number of them. Your drawings must go out in the world. The work must sell. You can never forget that. Pricing is just a number. It's just a number. It can go up or down, but the work must sell. There has to be an actual transaction, someone willing to part with their hard earned dollars for your work, and it must never be forgotten. Never forget it. Make it a mantra, no matter where you are in your artistic journey. And like, look, if it's exercise, then do it 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and never stop, and never stop. And I alluded to earlier about how it's just like exercise, where we're exercising a ton, we're doing it 3 days a week and we're kicking butt, and then life happens and then we got off track, right? Well, do you think Picasso never got off track? Okay. And then I remember another fact about Pablo Picasso. When he died, he had 45,000 unsold works in his inventory. 45,000. So it turns out Picasso got off track just like all the rest of us all the time. The only difference is he knew how to get back on track and he never stopped. And as a result of that, today the whole art world knows his name. Most of the world knows his name. The work must go out into the world. Never forget that. You can never forget that as a part of your journey. That's the simple truth. Number one, the work must go out into the world. The art must sell. Simple truth. Number two, okay, you have to have a range of pricing. You have to have a range of pricing. And why? Okay. There are a number of reasons here. This is a serious section and we want to dive into it. Okay. Your fans, your followers, your emails, your prospective buyers, your actual buyers, and yes, your collectors, the people that have bought multiple works, all fall into a socioeconomic bell curve. Okay. On one end of the bell curve, you have the low income folks. And then the curve goes up and you have lower middle class, upper middle class, high net worth individuals. Okay. A bell curve. Everyone's fans, followers, customers, potential customers, buyers, collectors fall into this curve. Okay. When you take your creative hat off and you put your entrepreneur hat on, you realize that if you are going to see the highest ROI, by which I mean return on investment from your marketing activities, what you're doing when you're attempting to sell your work, you have to have pricing that speaks to each portion of the bell curve. Okay. You have to have pricing that speaks to each portion of the bell curve. And when you learn this one, it is so profound. Now let's talk briefly how this plays out with real numbers in the real world. And then we can get into the product range that you need as an artist, as you need as a photographer to accomplish it. Okay. You need prices under $100. You need prices from $100 to $1,000. You need prices over $1,000. Okay. I argue that you need prices that are several $1,000s as well. And look, if you're already at the high end of the scale, let's say you're selling originals for 12 to 15 right now, you need prices at the low end of the scale, yes, but you also need prices that hit $50,000. Okay. And this is critically important because if you don't have those prices, then you are marketing to people that can't afford to buy your work right now, and they leave and you'll never hear from them ever again. But if you had a price point for them that fit in their budget, okay, they are going to buy something from you, and you now have a customer that you can market to in perpetuity. That is critically important. It's also important on the high end of the scale because you can have a high net worth buyer who only gets his hair blown back when he pays a top dollar for something. And because you didn't have anything with enough prestige in your store, you're going to miss that sale. Okay. So it works on the high end, it works on the low end, and then we have everything in the middle in our bell curve. Okay. Wonderful. Where do we go from here? You have to have products that are not wall art is a part of your lineup. Okay. Non-wall art needs to be a portion of what you are selling your creations on. Okay. Not everybody you market to will need wall art or be in the market for wall art at the moment that your marketing message reaches them. Okay. The vast majority, in fact, will not be in the market nor need wall art at that particular time. But these folks potentially love you. They love who you are. They love what you do. They love your creativity. And so when you have something that is not wall art, we'll get into what types of products those are in a minute, you stand the ability to make a sale from your marketing efforts, okay? Whereas in other times you would not. So this is all just maths. Entrepreneurs understand and have understood for years and years and centuries on how to get the most ROI from the people that are in your store, that are at your front door, that your marketing message reached, okay? And it's very, very important to understand that, which gets us to our next portion of this thing, which is there are only three ways to grow an art business, okay? There are only three. Way number one, what everybody works on, acquiring new customers, getting new customers that you've never met, strangers interested in your brand, selling them a piece of work. That is the first way to grow the business. The second way is to increase the purchase price, okay, when that customer does come and buy. Excuse me. We often refer to this as AOV, average order value, okay? The famous example of this that they teach you in marketing school, not that I ever went to marketing school, Hard Knocks. McDonald's used to sell burgers and they only sold burgers. And they're like, we need a way to grow this business. And somebody's like, tell you what, add fries. And so what ended up happening, this is way pre-combo days, obviously pre-number 30 days, you'd get a burger and they'd say, do you want fries with that? And somebody would be like, yeah, I do. And so they were going to buy a burger for $1, and now they're buying a burger and fries for $1.25. And so they're growing the business by 25 cents every time that they did that. Okay. First way to grow a business, acquire new customers. Second way, increase the AOV, the average order value. The third way is to get existing customers to come back again. Okay. To come back again. And what you'll find in just about every business is, especially the art business, is where everybody constantly focuses, spends all their time and energy and effort is in number one, is in acquiring new customers, acquiring new customers, acquiring new customers, acquiring new customers. People spend almost no time in figuring out how to increase their average order value in the middle. Okay. You can do that by raising prices. You can do that by one-click upsells and order bumps, topic for another day, but it's very important. And while people spend almost no time in the middle, people spend some time trying to get their existing customers coming back to buy. That's more common in the art industry. But an absolute universal truth is that the easiest customer to get is the one that you already have. It's the one that you already have to get them to come back and buy again. Okay. And it's so important to understand this. Okay. You know, people wonder on this show and in all my workshops and everything I do why I'm constantly pounding the collector list, right? As in the collector list, people have purchased at least one thing from you is probably the single solitary most important metric, the size and health of the collector list to an art or photography business, because the easiest customer to get is the one that you already have. Okay. That is the three ways to grow an art business. Very, very important to understand that. Very important to understand that. Okay. So now we started on range of pricing, right? We got into having the proper pricing range. We got into having non-wall art as a part of your lineup. We got into the three ways in which you grow an art business. Now let's combine them all, focus it through the product lineup that you need to have to achieve something like that. Okay. And it really, it needs to be noted. Okay. Like a lot of truths, the range of pricing one is just maths. It's just mathematics. It is a mathematical formula. There is zero room for emotion in it. Okay. There is zero room for emotion in it. It's just numbers on the page. It's ones and zeros. And so step one is understanding that you need to have this range of pricing. What products you achieve it with is sort of irrelevant. there's a great range of choice in which you can insert what products you are going to offer to hit these various different price points. If you have the price range, you win. Okay. Second, if you have a product other than wall art, you win. Other than that, though, you can insert as much creativity as you like in terms of what the product range is. But let's talk about one, with some real examples to give this whole thing some teeth. Okay, on the low end, the $0 to $100 range. Okay, or perhaps in these inflationary times, the low end is $150. Um, Merchandise is great. Okay. Merchandise is great. It is inexpensive. It is not wall art, and there is a wide range of it. Okay. Calendars, mugs, pillows, books, coasters, shirts, whatever. You pick what works for you and what works for your brand. And again, it's just mass. Okay. For those that look down on it, that thumb their nose at it. Okay. Let me know the last time you went into a museum that didn't have a gift shop. Don't worry, I'll wait. Come on, leave the comments, right? I don't see anything because no one's been into a museum that doesn't have a gift shop. And there's a reason for that. The museums have an entrepreneur hat and an art curation hat. They have both, okay? If the greatest works that have ever been created on canvas that exist in this world are in a museum and the museum has a gift shop that's selling merch, you can too. Okay, end of that part of the rant. Small paper prints generally do a good job solving for this as well. Prices under $100 for the mid-range, for $100 to $1,000. Okay, that's where you have prints and you have limited editions. For the high end, you can have limited editions and obviously originals. Especially if you're a photographer, there's not really originals, but you can have limited editions, special limited editions, bigger sizes, different media types. Right? You get that product line in order and your pricing issues solve themselves. How do I price this? Where do I get started? How am I going to do that? When you come at the problem from a completely different angle, in the sense that you need to have a pricing range, you're like, okay, well, what can fit into the $100 box? Okay, well, what can fit into the $100,000 box? Okay, what can fit above the $1,000 in the multi-$1,000 box? It becomes very evident what products you have that are going to fit in those boxes. Okay, so it really, focusing on this proper range and setting the price and the jumps, like it almost solves for all of the pricing conundrums that exist. Okay. And let me give you an example. From many, many moons ago, in my own business career, I owned a furniture store. Okay. I owned a furniture store, and one of the product lines inside of the furniture store was mattresses. And we would advertise this crappy, terrible. We used to run it over with a car to make it so terrible. I'm not proud of that. And we would advertise that thing in the paper as, $59 pillow top or whatever, come in. And you would come into the warehouse and the entire mattress lineup would be lined up from expensive down to cheap. And so people would come in, they would see the cheap one, and they would anchor on that for a moment. Okay, that's the low end of the scale. And then they would go all the way to the other end and look at the really, really high end, giant pillow top, memory foam, whatever the heck it had back then. And then they would anchor to the high end of the scale. And then they would usually pick something in between because they anchored at the high, they anchored at the low, and they found something that worked for them. Sometimes somebody would come in and buy the most expensive one. Other times, somebody might leave with the cheap one, and I would actually lose money. It was a huge pain in the butt. But what does that sound like to you? It's just another version of the bell curve. It is just the socioeconomic bell curve that we went over. It is that exact thing. It's just maths. So once you get this dialed, okay, you're covered. You're covered. Okay, you have a range of pricing, and it's just incredible. So we covered your art must go out into the world. Stated another way, so we've covered the range of pricing and all that entails. Let's get into negotiation. Okay, hot button issue, and then we can wrap the truths up with some sales. So the next truth is negotiation. And I love this one because, like I said, it's an extremely hot button issue. To negotiate or not. Okay, to negotiate or not. And you already know how I'm going to answer this one. Okay, let's start with the truths. Your work must go out in the world. If negotiation gets you there, then do it. End of section, right? I can move on. More broadly, though, the important thing to understand is that pretty much everyone negotiates with art. At the high end of the scale, it's at its fiercest, by which I mean pieces sold over $20,000 up to many millions. Okay. High net worth people did not get that way by paying retail for almost anything. Okay. We always hear about the prices that sell for asking, in the media, like sold at asking, sold above asking at Christie's or Sotheby's, this huge auction price. And all that does is poison our minds, thinking that like your art is always going to get full price. No one's ever going to want to negotiate. Then you contrast that to what actually goes down in the galleries. Okay. Galleries are some of the most opaque institutions in the entire world. No one has any idea what goes on in there. Okay. And let me tell you, because I've been at this for a while and I've been on the inside enough times now, the sheer amount of negotiation that goes down in the galleries is absolutely staggering. Okay. It is absolutely staggering, the negotiation that goes down on high end pieces of art that happens in galleries. The galleries just don't ever talk about it because they don't ever want anyone to know how much it goes down, right? Like, I make that point. I make that point, okay, because artists and photographers are trained to think negotiation cheapens their work, and it's the part of the reason why galleries just always hide the sales price. It is still rampant at the top end of the scale. Now, at the lower end of the scale, we're not suggesting. I'm not suggesting that you negotiate, okay? I'm not going to go into Target this afternoon and get my kid another Lego set, which, my God, is $53 last time we talked about inflation. Anyway, I'm not going to go into Target and negotiate and have them, try to grind them down on price. But in the middle end of your price range, okay, the 100 to 1,000 and all the way up to the top, that is the sweet spot for negotiation, okay? It is the sweet spot. I heartily endorse negotiating in the mid to high end of your price range, okay? It is a great weapon in the artist or photographer's toolbox to get your work out into the world. Universal truth number one: many people will never buy your work if they can't negotiate on it. And that is just how they roll. They will never purchase if they can't negotiate. When you know that, you can start leveraging it, start using it as an arsenal, okay, as a weapon in your arsenal. What do I mean by that? Okay. And it's so incredibly powerful and it's so incredibly easy, right? We solve for negotiation and the folks that might want to negotiate with our markups, okay, with our markups. And in the middle end of your pricing range, okay, the middle end of your pricing range, you should be marking up your prints, okay? You should be marking them up at a minimum of 250%. Sometimes for some people, depending on demand, 300, 400, 500, 600, even 700%. Okay, but let's just start to keep the math simple at 250% markup. So what would that be in a real world example? A print, a wholesale print, my canvas print or metal print, cost me $100 from the printer. I then mark it up 250%. So the sales item is $350, okay? $350. Now that would be a real world example of a 250% markup. Now, how do we approach our negotiation knowing that, okay? The trick, the key, the number one thing you all need to understand about negotiation, and we could do 15 different episodes about negotiation, and culturally I'm probably not the right person to do it because there's certain cultures where like negotiation are just experts. I've learned from some of them. When you negotiate, okay, the key, the secret, the trick is never negotiate down without getting something in return. It's profound. I'm going to repeat it. Never negotiate down on price without getting something in return. The nuance in that statement, though, is the amount of creativity that is on offer to deal with that. Okay. So let's go back to our real world example. We have a metal print that cost us $100 and it is listed for $350 in our booth at an art fair. Somebody comes in, they're like, wow, I really, really like that piece, but $350 is just a little bit out of my budget, Patrick. No problem. What are you willing to pay for it? Well, I'll tell you what. I'd take it for $300. Would you let it go for $300? What do most artists and photographers do? Oh yeah. That's a sale. I'll take it, right? And they just say yes. And that person maybe will buy it, or they'll maybe try to grind you down even further. Stop doing that. Okay. Stop doing that. This is the game of negotiation. Patrick, I really like that piece for $350, but I only have 300. I take it for 300. And I go, all right. Well, I'll tell you what, my car was really, really full coming to the show today, and I would love to have one less piece in there. So if you take it today, I'll drop the price to 300 bucks for you. Boom. A sale happened. A sale happened that probably wasn't going to happen if you didn't negotiate it down correctly. What you've done is you've taken something completely manufactured in this case, which is I will come down the $50 in price to $300 if you take it today. Do you agree to that? They agree to that. You've made a sale. You did not give something away for nothing. And guess what that does to your psychology? Guess what that does to your own personal mental state when you don't ever give anything away for free. Okay. You will have more creativity in yourself as an artist. You will have more creativity in your artwork, and you'll learn another art, which is negotiation. So negotiation is incredibly powerful. You just need to get creative on what you come down on. Okay. When you're doing the negotiation. And guess what? We have made room for negotiation because we have done a markup, which is 250%. Okay. That 250% has been done strategically to give us the room to be able to negotiate and come down a little bit and make sales where we never would have before. Okay. Your art must go out into the world. Everyone negotiates. The smart artist plans for it, understands markups the middle portion of their pricing range and their high end of their range, and they make sales as a result of it. It's another one of these things that's just mass. That covers negotiation. Let's get into sales. Okay. Now we just uncovered how important markups are, especially in the mid-range of your product line. It's very easy to do with prints. It's less straightforward to do with originals, but when you have the price range, your originals sort of price themselves, don't they? The bigger they get, the higher the price goes up, right? So let's talk about the sales. We know if we mark things up correctly, we can discount, right? We can come down, we can negotiate. Whether it's a discount or it's negotiation, it's you coming down in price. But let's talk about sales generally. And again, as is the case with most of these universal truths, it gets us into a situation where we're talking about maths again, okay? Like many of these truths, they're all just maths. In this case, it is more of a psychological equation or proof in which the equation goes as such. Human beings, us, me, you, we need discounts plus scarcity equals human beings more likely to take desired action. Real world example, the discount is 15%. The scarcity is the sale ends Monday at midnight, and it equals more sales being made because more human beings are going to take action. I often say the only two retailers that I'm aware of that don't discount are Tiffany's and Louis Vuitton, right? Now, I know there are more out there, but it's no easy feat to accomplish, not running sales, unless you have a seriously strong brand. And let me tell you, you stand a much better chance at success if you do run sales and you understand this equation, okay? For centuries and centuries, retailers have known the simple equation: discount plus scarcity equals human beings taking action. So why are you trying to reinvent the wheel by not running sales? Stop doing that. You need to start doing it. It is just maths. Take off your creativity hat, put on your business hat, and when you do, and you realize it's just a mathematical equation, you're like, okay, I get it. I got to run sales. I need to be running sales more often. Okay, there's a reason that all retailers run sales. They work. They just work. So when you combine the truths, all right, the art must sell. The art must get out into the world. You need to have a range in pricing, and all of that entails negotiation is a normal part of the vast majority of art sales. And you need to be running sales and doing so on a regular basis, and especially the markups when they're included in there. When you combine those truths, okay, you realize that 90% of the pricing conundrum is essentially solved for you because you set a pricing range. You've got all these prices covered. It pushes the prices up that need to go up. It gives you ranges in which to set your prices for every single solitary item. You've got an entire scale there from zero into several thousands, into quite a few thousands, depending on who you are. The majority of the pricing conundrum is completely solved for you. Okay? It's done. It's done. It's just a big math equation. The only thing you have to worry about is doing your marketing and getting more eyeballs in there and selling the work. Okay? You can course correct along the way. raise prices, you can lower prices. You can raise prices in the middle of the range. You can raise prices at the high end of the range. You can lower them right back down at any point as well. Okay. There is no one mathematical formula or equation or magical, magical 3-step process to pricing. It's art. It's not science. What you're selling is also art. But you course correct along the way. But when you have the framework and the simple truths that I just laid out, you're pretty much done. You are pretty much done. The pricing burden has been taken off of your back. I am now holding it for you and taking it away from you, and you can keep running and keep going. If your work isn't selling, if your work is selling incredibly well, you can raise prices. If your work isn't selling incredibly well, you can lower prices. All of those normal course corrections are a completely normal process of the business going forward year after year after year. And guess what? If your work is selling well, you don't have to do anything. Okay. You might just need to do more marketing and 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x your volume. Instead of selling 10 pieces a month, start selling 30. You would be surprised how many business problems increasing the sales volume solves. Let me tell you. So that, I think, is a very, very good primer on the advanced topic of how to approach pricing, how to think through pricing, what you need to focus on, and what you need to get right. And I will just tell you, because I talk to thousands of artists week in, week out, and I have been doing this for a long time now. Okay. I keep saying long time, like 90. I've been doing this for a good clip of time now. The sheer number of artists, okay, that are seeing some success with sales, all the way up to the ones that are knocking on the 6-figure door, oftentimes break the majority of these rules. Oftentimes are breaking massive ones. And it might be okay for some of them because their business is humming along, but they are leaving thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. And they need to stop. I want them to stop. So that's how you approach pricing. That's how to contemplate it. Hope it was helpful. Thanks everybody for watching as long as you did. Have a great rest of your day.